This man is the founder of UNICEF. Over the years, UNICEF has helped millions of children around the world in many areas like education, health, and poverty. But despite all the good things he did, just because he is not a Muslim, will he remain in hell forever? Or what about scientists like Albert Einstein, Nikola Tesla, or Isaac Newton who greatly benefited humanity? Will all of them go to hell just because they weren't Muslims? In fact, let's make the question even more difficult. Just because someone is Muslim, no matter how bad he is as a person, after being punished for his sins, will he still eventually go to eternal paradise? Doesn't it seem like an injustice? Today on Towards Eternity, this tough question will be answered. I'm curious about your thoughts after watching the video, because I'm pretty sure there'll be a big difference from what you think now. Now, imagine that you were born into a tribe. You live on a remote island far away from the modern world, and you have never heard of Islam in your entire life. And as a result, you died as a non-Muslim. Now, does that mean you will be in hellfire forever? In Islam, this situation is known as being among al-Fatrah, meaning people of the interval. According to the majority of Islamic scholars, since these people never received the message, they won't be held accountable in the hereafter. So, they will go to paradise. This applies not only to people living on a remote island, but to everyone who never came into contact with Islam's message. About this issue, Allah says the following in the Quran: "And we would never punish until we have sent a messenger." So, since they never received the message of our Prophet ﷺ, they won't be held responsible for believing in it. Now, let's think of 4 different individuals, each representing a group of people in terms of being exposed to Islam's message. The first person receives the message in the right way and chooses to believe in it. This person goes to paradise. The second person, like the one on the island, never heard about Islam. This person belongs to Ahl al-Fatrah and also goes to paradise. The third person receives the message of Islam properly but chooses to reject it. This person goes to hell. In addition to these 3, there's a 4th type of person who is introduced to Islam but in the wrong way. According to Imam al-Ghazali, one of the most renowned Islamic scholars, in his book Fasl al-Tafriqa, this group is also from Ahl al-Fatrah. According to him, they should be considered among the ones who have not received the message at all. He says, it is hoped that they will be among Ahl al-Najat, the people who are saved. In other words, the people of paradise. Now, the first 3 groups can be easily understood. But how exactly does the 4th one work? How does someone receive the message of Islam in the wrong way? Here, the key term we come across is the Arabic word taklif, which can be translated as religious responsibility. For taklif to apply to a person, he or she needs to be properly presented with the true message of Islam. Imagine that someone was told something under the name of Islam, but what they were told was completely false or had nothing to do with Islam. In this case, the requirements of taklif are not fulfilled. In his work, Imam al-Ghazali says the following about this group: even if they have heard the name of the Prophet ﷺ, they haven't heard his qualities and characteristics. More precisely, they have known the Prophet since they were little children, as, ma'azallah, a liar named Muhammad falsely claimed to be a prophet. In my opinion, their situation is like the situation of those in the first group, i.e. those who have never heard of Islam, because they have heard the name of the Prophet ﷺ, but with the opposite of his actual qualities. Such misinformation does not encourage a person to think or search for the truth. Imagine that a terrorist group with a strange name emerges and is responsible for the brutal killing of dozens of people. Would you be interested in this group or its founder at all? Would you ever think of following their ideology, thinking that maybe they're the ones who are on the right path? Would you start looking into their beliefs? Would you even try to empathize with them? I don't think so. That's why Imam al-Ghazali said, this doesn't encourage a person to think or search for the truth. But even so, he chose his words carefully and said, it is hoped that they'll be among Ahl al-Najat, the people who are saved. Of course, only Allah knows who belongs to Ahl al-Fatrah and who doesn't. And we definitely cannot know what's in someone's heart, what they have been through, what they have heard or not, or how they lived their lives. That's why we cannot point to anyone and say, this person is among Ahl al-Fatrah. Making such a claim would be a huge mistake. Now, after saying all this, let's rephrase the question we asked in the beginning. There's a person who has done great things for humanity, and also Islam's message has reached him correctly, but he didn't accept it. Will this person go to hell for eternity? If he has already passed away, then the answer is yes. But if they are still alive, the answer is unknown. It might sound simple, but there's something important we need to keep in mind here. We can never know if that person will choose to believe later in life. Maybe 30 years later, or maybe just 3 days before their death. There are many real-life examples of it. Remember, what truly matters is not their current state, but rather the belief they die with. Eternal hell isn't the punishment for having no faith at the moment. It is the consequence of dying without faith. If someone still has the essence of faith in their soul, Allah may somehow grant them the opportunity to believe before they die. But if they die without faith, it means they have lost that essence in their soul, that potential to believe. And that is why they never came to faith. And even if they had been given an extra 10, 20, or 50 years to live, the result wouldn't change. In fact, some Islamic scholars have explained why a non-believer remains in hell forever using this reasoning. As you know, the longer people hold on to an idea, the harder it becomes to change their mind. And over time, that idea becomes such a big part of them that they cannot let it go. So about the people who died as non-believers, those scholars said, no matter how long that person would have lived, they would never come to believe, because they have already lost that essence, that potential. The reason they didn't believe isn't because they didn't live long enough. It's because their actions caused them to permanently lose the ability to accept faith. And that's why there's no way out of hell for that person. But of course, this perspective alone isn't enough to fully understand the issue. There are three more important details we often miss when asking this question. As we explore them, the issue starts to become much clearer. The first one, we don't realize that the good deeds we do are not really ours. What do I mean? Have you ever seen the first wireless phone? Now think about the person who invented it, Martin Cooper. I say invented, but in a way, he only discovered it. Why? Because all he did was follow the laws that Allah set in the universe and put together the materials in the right way that Allah created. So he is not the actual designer. Let me explain more. Think about everything that was required for the invention of the wireless phone. For example, the laws of the universe had to be set in a way that made this possible. I mean, when you look at it, is it normal for two pieces of metal to transmit sound waves from one city to another? Of course not. For that to happen, the laws of physics had to be properly established and maintained. Additionally, electromagnetic waves had to travel freely through the air. And then there's Martin Cooper himself. For him to even think of this invention, his brain, his nervous system, and many other functions in his body had to work perfectly. And all of these are maintained by Allah. Even the inspiration for the idea and the motivation to act on it came from Allah. So doesn't that make Cooper's part in this invention like 1 in a million? Imagine that you buy a gift for someone, something they have always dreamed of or something that would make them very happy, and you send it to their address. Now, how would it make sense if that person thanked the delivery guy when they received the gift and said something like, "How thoughtful of you," but completely forgot about you? Wouldn't you feel bad and disturbed by that? Our situation is very similar to this example, because in reality, we are just like delivery people when it comes to good deeds. If Allah didn't put compassion in our hearts, if He didn't make us feel good when we do good things, or if He didn't grant us wealth, we wouldn't be able to do any of them. And that's exactly why Allah says in Surah An-Nisa, what comes to you of good is from Allah, but what comes to you of evil is from yourself. So this brings up another question. Even if someone's role in a good deed is very small, he still chose to do it, didn't he? After all, he could have chosen not to. So won't those deeds be taken into account on the Day of Judgment, even if he refused to believe? Of course they'll be. Not everyone who ends up in hell will face the same punishment. Take Abu Talib and Abu Lahab, for example. Both were uncles of the Prophet ﷺ. Both died without accepting Islam. However, one of them supported Muslims, while the other was one of Islam's greatest enemies. Do you think their punishment in the hereafter will be the same? Definitely not. Everyone will be judged and punished according to their actions. Additionally, the Prophet ﷺ once said in the hadith, "Indeed, Allah does not treat a believer unjustly when it comes to their good deeds. He grants blessings to them in this world and gives them reward in the hereafter. As for a non-believer, they receive the reward for their good deeds in this world. But when they reach the hereafter, they will find nothing left to be rewarded for." So the disbeliever will be rewarded for his good deeds in this world, before he dies. It could be through fame, success, or wealth. It could be many things. But when you think about it, why do we only focus on what he will get in the future? Did this person do anything to earn his eyesight? No. It's a priceless gift he was granted. And there are many other countless blessings given to him throughout his life. These alone are more than enough as rewards. He receives his reward in advance, from the very beginning. Also, faith, on the other hand, is like a means that transforms the temporary things in this world into eternal blessings. If the person has faith, the real reward is given in the hereafter. But if not, his reward is limited only to this world. There's a main purpose why human beings were sent to this world. They were sent here to be tested. And the primary condition to enter paradise is faith, not humanism. Good deeds are also important, but they are secondary. The second detail that we often miss is that we don't truly understand the seriousness of the crime that disbelievers commit. What good deed done by one creation to another can cover up for denying their creator? This is exactly what denial means. We can think of it this way. Every religion has its own definition of the Creator, and once you accept one, you are basically accepting the entire package that comes with it. In every religion except Islam, there are false and corrupted beliefs about the Creator. For example, some believe that a man wrestled with God and that God won by cheating, or that God can regret his actions. He cannot see or know certain things, or he can get tired. Others believe in a God who can die, or that he has equal partners. Some believe in a separate God responsible for creating evil, while others believe that there are gods who compete with each other, and so on. And these are not beliefs that have just a few followers. They are found in some of the world's most widespread religions, apart from Islam. In Islam, these are considered slanders against God. According to the belief that Islam teaches, Allah is Ahad, meaning He is uniquely one. There is no partner, rival, or equal to Allah whatsoever. Every one of His servants can turn to Him directly, at any time, without needing anyone in between, and pray to Him sincerely. Allah is also as-Samad, meaning He needs no one and nothing. He is not dependent on anything, while everything depends on Him. His power has no limits. His knowledge surrounds and covers everything, and He is free from any attribute that implies weakness or inability. To help us understand these truths, He provides us with clear signs throughout the universe. Now let's think about atheists or agnostics. They don't believe in God. Yet everything in the universe, both the ones we can see and the ones that are in the unseen, introduces us to Allah, His names, and His attributes. Denying His existence means rejecting the testimony of every being in the entire universe and all the messages they convey. It's like calling all of them a lie. At the same time, each of them was created with a purpose. But when their creator is denied, it's as if that person is claiming that they are purposeless, random. According to this view, everything came into existence as a coincidence and is nothing more than meaningless matter. This is a slander against all of creation, but more than that, it's also a huge crime against their creator, Allah. Basically, it's like saying, you didn't create this universe, it has no purpose, and you cannot punish me in hell for saying that. So, when you think about it, there can be no greater crime than refusing to believe in Allah, because it means slandering a being whose names and attributes are infinite. And since His names and attributes are infinite, the crime committed against Him is infinite as well. And a criminal can only be released after completing their time in prison. But because the crime of a person who denies Allah is infinite, hell becomes their eternal home. And no good deed he or she could have ever done in their lifetime can ever make up for that crime. As humans, we have the potential to turn our attention and focus on the smallest, most trivial and meaningless things. Yet, on the other hand, there are far greater issues that we have to deal with, such as the purpose of our creation or the reason why the universe was created. There's a reality called death, which happens to 250,000 people every single day, and we are all being directed towards a destination. When that is the case, the excuses of someone who spends hours or even months on trivial, unimportant things cannot be accepted. And finally, the third detail that is often overlooked. Not everyone who claims to be Muslim will enter paradise. The moment of death, when the soul is about to be taken by the angel, the devil approaches the Muslim. He has been waiting for this very moment, and now he uses his final trick to try to lead that person into disbelief. Do you know what can save us at that crucial moment? A deeply rooted faith, an iman that is firmly established in the heart. If a person's spiritual side is very weak, then their situation will be very difficult. That is why the greatest concern of Islamic scholars has always been to protect their faith and enter the grave in this state. One of the great Islamic scholars, Bediüzzaman Said Nursi, said, "Not denying is one thing, but believing is something entirely different." Believing in Allah means wholeheartedly affirming Him with His attributes and His names, as taught by the Quran and based on the testimony of the universe, and recognizing the commands He has sent through His messengers and sincerely regretting and repenting when you sin or disobey His orders. Otherwise, committing major sins freely but not asking for forgiveness and showing no care is evidence that he doesn't have a type of faith that will really benefit him in the hereafter. In other words, just accepting faith isn't enough to enter paradise. To achieve this, we must live by our faith, protect it, and die in that state. This means that, on the one hand, someone who belongs to al-Fatrah, someone who has never heard of Islam, can still enter paradise. And on the other, a person who is only Muslim by name, who never lives according to the teachings of Islam, can end up in eternal hell. When you look at your own life, if you cannot bring any proof for the existence of Allah and the hereafter, the very things you claim to believe in, and if your life lacks the religious practices that should be there, like salah, zakat, and fasting, but is filled with things that shouldn't be, like lying, backbiting, adultery, or cheating others, then maybe simply saying I believe will not be enough for you to enter the grave with faith. But beyond all these explanations, there is one more thing we often forget. What makes us question why those people will go to hell for eternity? It is our sense of mercy and justice, right? But who gave them to us in the first place? Allah. From a mother's love and compassion for her child to the love and care we see in millions of mother animals for their young, Allah is the source of it all. Do you think it's possible for the one who gave us such immense mercy to be less merciful than us? Of course not. The same applies to our sense of justice. Allah would never give such a punishment unless it was truly deserved. Even if we didn't know any of the explanations we have talked about so far, this one fact alone would still be enough to understand this issue. Allah, who created the founder of UNICEF and all the other non-Muslims, will surely treat them with His infinite justice and mercy. That is His decision. What we are responsible for and have to do is to strengthen our faith, worship and serve Allah sincerely and in the right way, and to show the beauty of Islam to humanity through our actions. Now ask yourself, do you truly believe that you're fulfilling your duty the way you should?